Awesome, brother. Welcome back to the Waking Warrior podcast. We did an episode last week where we really dug into a lot of your early history and a lot of things that you'd gone through in your life, which was a really heavy episode. And I'm really excited to dig into this today because it covers your healing path and your healing journey. So I'd love, if you want, man, just take it off and let us know maybe some of the stuff you tried or, you know, where that took you, and then we'll take it from there.
For sure, man. Just trying to think back to the last conversation and where we left off. I was getting out of the army, managing a gun store. I was in that dark place, right, and falling further down that hole just from, the experiences of going to college, dealing with younger folks with no life experience who don't understand you as a veteran, all that good stuff. At some point, I decided I didn't want to work in that particular person's business, making them all the money anymore. I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Voc Rehab was giving me extra money, like they do when you finish a degree program, as long as you can show that you're applying for and responding to any interest for jobs. I came across insurance and entered the insurance industry and moved from Washington State across the country to South Carolina. And my wife now, but girlfriend at the time, I basically did the wrong thing. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this and I want you to go with me. But if you're not going to go with me, that's going to be the end of us, because I just don't do long distance. I don't trust that kind of thing. Right. Hindsight's 2020. We've been married for 2 years now. And that was in 2020. So we've been together for a little over 5 years. And I should have never treated her like that, but I didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with all the things that I needed to deal with in order to begin healing. So I got out into the insurance industry, knocking doors, selling final expense to the poorest 1/3 of America and rural Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. I mean, poor, man. I thought I was poor growing up. These people have no physical education. Most of them don't have bank accounts. They live. You can imagine how they live. I mean, it's not unheard of to go try and sell a policy to somebody sitting at their kitchen table and you will have roaches crawling up your pants. It's really that bad. And so found out pretty quickly within about 90 days that just didn't, that made everything worse. It just made me feel like this scummy person. Right. And kind of added fuel to the fire. Now, mind you, at this point, I've been sober, not just sober from alcohol for a long time. I had beat the alcohol thing, but I didn't really have a vice, if you will. I'm not exercising. I'm not doing any kind of breath work or mindfulness or meditation. In fact, I'm very agnostic to all of that and don't want anything to do with it. I think that it's woo-woo, it's out there, it can't fucking work, whatever, right? And so in my insurance kind of journey, a lot of things happened, right? I left the door knocking job and worked from home selling health insurance. And that kind of added more to the fire. We were living in they called it a 1-bedroom with a bonus room. The bonus room was like a 5x5 room that you could just store shit in. Not doing well financially. My wife is struggling financially and dealing with her own mental health problems. And, selling health insurance is basically the same thing as selling shitty life insurance to poor people, because all they're doing is looking at what income you make, taking a package, adding a feature here, removing a feature there, giving it a new title, and charging you a more premium for it. And unfortunately, I'm gifted, I guess, in that I can talk to people. And so selling isn't hard for me, but I just felt really dirty about it. So when I worked for that company, I was not doing any exercise. So I wasn't getting out of the house. And I was just basically felt like a prisoner, just piling more just stuff on, in that dark hole. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You can relate. And I hope most people listening to this can relate. So when that company had an issue with their leads, and they were providing the leads, just giving me a smaller cut of the compensation. I was fine with that because I didn't have a lot of money to buy my own leads since I was out traveling when I was knocking doors. And in insurance, you get these things called chargebacks. And basically the way you get paid in insurance is You sell a policy at $100 a month premium. The insurance company advances you 9 months of premium. So let's just say I was getting 50% of that. That's a $450 paycheck in my pocket. Well, what typically happened with those people is they would cancel it like the minute you walked out the door. And nobody's teaching me about follow-up. Nobody's teaching me how to understand if these policies are staying in force. And then you immediately owe them all $450 back. Well, it doesn't matter how much you're selling. Basically, I looked at that logically and was like, it's going to be 9 months before I can touch any of the money that I've made. This isn't going to work for me. And I was already having to pay for hotels, my gas to drive around, the paper to print the lead sheets on that really gets your foot in the door to sell to these people. And so I wasn't dealing with that at the work from home job, but I was dealing with them giving me access to whatever leads they wanted. So you start off, it's just like anything else. You get the cheaper leads, the shitty ones that nobody wants to call, make a bunch of phone calls, sell a couple policies, and then you kind of get upgraded. Well, I had been getting really good leads and doing well, and then all of a sudden they just stopped coming. And they stopped coming for like 10 days. So I'm losing my mind. I'm an angry ball of just frustration, rage, and I'm taking it out on my wife. I'm taking it out on my dog, of all people, right? Like, he doesn't do anything but want to go for walks and play ball. And so I was like, okay, I took a little step back and I calmed down and got my wits about me. And I was like, I can figure this out. And I went to all the big box property and casualty companies in my local town and printed resumes off and went basically begging for a job, and kind of felt really low about that because here I am, a combat vet, 12, 13 years, whatever it was, all these things. Like, I should not be having to do this, and sure enough, I land that day, like 4 job offers. I had to make a decision, thought I was making the right decision, and joined an Allstate agency. And that was probably the most miserable 5 months, 6 months of my life, because I'm in there, the only one selling anything. The agency owner's not doing anything. He's refusing to talk to his book of business. I think I talked about this in part 1. And it's just, It's compounding, man. It's just piling on and piling on. I had moved, us all the way across the country to pursue this entrepreneurial endeavor, and I'm failing miserably, and it's getting to me. And so when he didn't pay me some commission, I left my letter of resignation on his desk when he went away for the Thanksgiving weekend. And I was pretty much at my lowest. I just went home. I told my wife, I was like, it's your turn to decide what we're going to do. She hated South Carolina and living there, and I wasn't going to put her through that anymore. The 18 months that I had promised her I would figure out how to make something work was up. And so I just gave her free rein. So she wanted to come here to Florida. She loved it. She'd never been until we came down here to visit my family. So we come to Florida. I go back to flight school to finish up CFI and just kind of resign the fact that I'm going to have to give up smoking weed. I stopped smoking weed, got my urine clean and all that, went and redid my medical, got into the CFI program, was doing well, got through stage 1, and a week later was supposed to be my check ride so that I could start teaching students. And when I lived in Washington State, some crackheads broke into my house and stole my flight bag and a bunch of other shit from me. Well, my flight bag had my logbook in it. And when you want to take a check, which has all of my hours that I've ever flown from private all the way through commercial. Well, you have to know those numbers to the exact number and add everything you've flown, since that last check ride to those numbers. Well, long story short, I didn't have those numbers. It's going to be 6 to 9 months before I really get a shot, because the FAA is going to have to mail me this paperwork. Don't know why it's going to take 9 months, but that's what they said. So I was like, well, I told the school I got to walk away from this. I got to go find something to keep me occupied. Until then, still not exercising, still gaining a ton of weight. Very, very unhealthy, high blood pressure. They say pre-diabetic. I think I was actually diabetic. I probably would have benefited from some insulin. I'm eating junk, man, complete junk, not drinking water, sucking down soda, not full-fledged alcoholic again, but I'm having 2 or 3 hard Mountain Dews a night, keeping that in check, but like just poisoning my body. And I'm stuck. I got to wait. So I get this job here in Florida at the Duda sod farm, and it's really just mowing all the sod. You test lawnmower equipment for Stanley Black and Decker, and from 7 to 5:30, you put headphones in and you mow grass all day. And I was like, this is perfect for me. So this is where I really think my healing journey really actually started, because in the sod farm, I worked every single hour that I could, to include all the overtime. And I was making good money. I mean, $1,000 a week to really have no responsibility and be left alone is, to me, is good money. And I think most would agree. And that's after tax money. So it was like right at like $1,060 a week or something like that. So I'm like, this is good. I'm stacking money away for going back to finish flight school. And I have a lot of time to think and a lot of time to really assess where I'm at in life and my situation. And I'm listening to books and podcasts. I think that year I went through like 74 audiobooks in about a 4-month time span, because I just had nothing but time. And I found the Sean Ryan Show, which is another podcast. And man, that show piqued my interest, because he's talking to all the people I idolized when I was in the Army, right? SEAL Team 6 operators, Delta Force operators, special forces guys who are some badasses that, some of the guys I had actually had interactions with. And so I'm captivated. And he's doing the deep work with them, right? He's exploring their upbringings and their childhoods and the traumas, and he's really like forcing them to answer some really hard questions. And that prompted me to kind of start looking inside myself and recognizing some things that might be wrong with me. And I want to kind of pause there for a second and tell the audience that this is all stuff I realized after my ayahuasca journey. This is not stuff that I'm speaking about that I was self-aware enough to know about in the moment. This is all kind of hindsight, right? I think it's important to realize that, because this is the work that I'm talking about that you have to be doing on yourself to heal. And I would have been in such a better place had I had that knowledge when I was kind of starting this transformation. So Sean, I started listening to him at like episode 3. So he's very new podcaster on YouTube and Spotify, and somewhere in like the 20s or 30s, maybe even 40s, I can't remember, of episodes, he starts talking about psychedelics and plant medicine. And I'm captivated because, like a lot of veterans, I think even yourself included, Scottie, I watched a lot of my buddies go to the VA and get pill bottle after pill bottle after pill bottle. And I saw what it did to them, and it wasn't making them any better. They were in the same spot that I was in. They were just fucking zombies. And I knew that was never an option for me. So I'd always been looking for some kind of alternative. And I was in a dark place, so I wasn't motivated to go self-study and seek out plant medicine on my own. But through the Sean Ryan Show, I'll never forget it, man. When he talked to Trevor Millar from the place that he went, which was his facilitator, then he sat down and his wife asked him questions about his psychedelic journey, and he talked about his whole experience with ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. And that set me into action, man. I started looking for all the veterans charities that had programs like this. And I quickly fell into another depression and got really depressed, because 99.8% of all the charities out there that provide psychedelic healing for veterans cater to the special operations forces world. And I'm not a special forces guy. I have 0 special forces on my resume, and it immediately disqualified me for a lot of them, until I got a phone call from Heroic Hearts Project one day. And I was at my wit's end, man, because I had now, it's probably January, February of 2023. I had lost the job in the sod farm because I tore my bicep tendon and had to have 2 surgeries to fix it, because the first surgeon botched the first surgery, and it ended up being a whole ordeal. So I'm pretty miserable, man. I'm not doing really much with my life, but doom scrolling and getting high a lot, and it's not a good situation. I've never been one to think that I was capable of taking my own life, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't contemplating for sure.
Mm,
And because I just felt like I was completely out of options. Look at all the things that are stacking up against me. So shortly after the second surgery, when they actually fixed my left arm, Heroic Hearts called me and they did my intake, and they're like, "We would like to, send you on a trip to Tarapoto, Peru in the last day of June to the 7th of July. All expenses paid, everything." Ran me through it, and I was over the fucking moon, man. I tell you.
mm,
Um, and I want to say, I can't remember how it went, and I should, but I think like the 4 weeks before the trip, and then 4 weeks after, or 2 weeks before, and 6 weeks after, it's a lot, but they start integrating you, and you get a coach, and you do weekly meetings with this coach, and you talk about setting intentions, and you learn about intentions, and dude, I'm eating this shit up. I'm taking notes. Somewhere I still have a notebook full of all the notes I took with the meetings with my coach, the group meetings that you have to attend monthly with Heroic Hearts, and then comes the trip, man. And I'm terrified, dude. I'm shitting my pants. Not so much about like going to a foreign country or whatever, but really when we got to the retreat, and you see the Maloka, you see the ceremonial space, and you feel the energy around you. Like I'll be honest and say I didn't know anything about energies and how everything vibrates at anything, and like good and bad energy, like that's a sense that we have. And that was my first real experience with like, oh my God, this place is something special. And so what an amazing experience, because you get there, and from the minute you get there, it's very much about preparing you for your journey. And I couldn't be more grateful, man.
oh, that's amazing, man. So do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about the experience itself and what it was like when you got there?
Yeah, man, for sure. I remember, you get there, and just outside the Chaloka is kind of like the gathering area. And Chaloka's a made up word. It's just a screen in area for everybody to go chill. I think we were playing handpan and guitar.
Oh,
I
like
would
a
eat my meals
Chiloka.
out there. Yeah,
Oh, I got it.
Chaloka. Yeah, yeah. They
Okay, so
just
like
kind
a
of
so
riffed off the Maloka, right?
yeah,
But
so the Maloka being, for those that don't understand, the Maloka is the traditional space where the ceremony is held.
yeah, correct.
Okay,
It's a
got it.
really cool. I think it's like a 12-sided building with like it's on stilts. It's way up. I think it's like 270 steps I had to climb to get to it every night. I remember that,
Oh
just from
wow.
where my room was. But yeah, so you're sitting around a fire pit that you don't get to use until after your last ceremony, and they do the introductions. And Vlad, the owner of Solterra Healing, I don't know if that's changed, but he introduced himself, and then our facilitators were Jonathan and Kaisa, and I couldn't have asked for better facilitators. They introduced themselves, and then you just kind of chill out the rest of the day. They give you your rooms. And you're pairing up with somebody from your cohort, whether you know them or not. I got really lucky and got an awesome Marsoc Raider as my roommate. We were both kind of in the same position in life, and so it worked out perfectly, just like I think it was supposed to. And then you meet for dinner, I think, that night, and then you chill out pretty much the rest of the night. They encouraged us to start journaling and thinking about what we wanted to get out of the experience. And you're meeting your group, right? You're getting to know about your group, and just kind of trying to make friends, and like really just feeling everything out that first night. You get up the next morning, and I'm gonna get this wrong. I don't really remember. It was either the next morning or the morning after. So we'll just say the next morning you get up, you eat breakfast, and then after breakfast you have a hard time to be up in the Maloka, and you're going to talk ayahuasca talk and do some yoga, right? And it's really important, man. It was really, really special. And at this point you haven't had any medicine, so I'm very much still the same person that I was when I showed up, but something is definitely changing, right? Like I'm not one to have ever been captivated by plant medicine or chakras and energy work and breath work and mindfulness, but for whatever reason in this space, I am all ears, man. I'm not saying anything. I'm taking it all in. I'm learning, and I'm receiving this information. And it was great. And then you do lunch, and then you do some more, practical writing or whatever. And it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's like classroom. It's very much kind of, it's definitely an option, but it's encouraged that you participate in everything that goes on at the retreat. And so, the first 2 days really are kind of chill. And then the third day, when you wake up, I think it was the third day, there's no breakfast, because instead you're going to go do vomitivo. And that is really kind of the first test of where you get to see a little bit of where people are at and who people really kind of are. Because me particularly, I first of all don't like throwing up. Second of all, I definitely don't like throwing up in front of people, because to me, it feels like you're displaying all kinds of things that we as, I don't know, warriors, if you will, don't display, right? Vulnerability, weakness, the inability to protect yourself in a moment like that, all those emotions. And I'm not doing so well with those. So, if you're going to stand there and everybody in front of everybody, you're going to chug as many glasses of lemongrass tea as it takes to understand what it is to purge. And then you get to eat, and then you do, every day you're doing flower baths. And forgive me, man, I'm going out of order because it's such a wild experience that I can't, I can't latch onto all of it in the order that it happened. But, that's the day, right? So lunch is the last meal you get until the next morning, because you're going to be fasted. So lunch was at like 11 every day, I think. And so at 11 o'clock, you're encouraged to not even drink water really anymore. However, they're not going to stop you from drinking water, but they lock the kitchen. You're not going to have access to food. And oh, by the way, any snacks that you bring with you or whatever, they lock them. They take them from you and lock them up. Like you have to participate in that part. I had an awesome cohort because we all chose to turn our cell phones in and let them lock those up too, even though they don't work there. So that I had no access to any kind of technology whatsoever. And let me tell you, man, it was awesome. It was probably the best decision I could have made on that trip. So, but then 6 o'clock rolls around and it's Maloka time. And the first hour is some light breath work, and really it's called yoga. But what I didn't understand about yoga is the word encompasses not only motion but breath and stretching, and it means so many things, right? Like I think traditionally people hear yoga and they think weird poses and it's hard and I'm not flexible enough to do this. But even simple yoga is sitting there with your legs crossed and breathing and being focused on your breath. And so we would do some light stretching for about the first half hour, and then we do another like 15-20 minutes of just breath work. And the point of that was to, I think, get you to understand how to ground yourself. And by that I mean, when you blast off with ayahuasca, there's a lot that happens and you can't make any sense of it. Some of it is the greatest feelings you've ever felt in your entire life. And I'm talking far, far, far beyond the physical. Like you feel these things to your soul, and they're the most beautiful things that you've ever felt. But the opposite is also true. I've never been more terrified in my life. And by terrified, I mean, I really genuinely believe I have seen or experienced what hell is like, on some level. And so understanding that, they really want you to understand that you are safe and that you can always come back to grounded by simple breathing. Just a 4 count in, a pause for 4 seconds, a 4 count out, a pause at the bottom, and 4 rounds of that, and you should be pretty settled and grounded back into a semi-reality on the medicine. And you are a medicine man, so I would default to you on that. I don't think that I'm misinterpreting what I understood, but that's at least how I took it. And then you wait for Maestro and Maestra to come in, and they come in and they sit down in the center of the room. Mind you, you're all in a I don't know what the word for a 12-sided circle is, but there's 12 of us, and you're laying on a mat inside with your head towards the wall typically, and then obviously you're supposed to be upright when the maestro and maestra come and talk to you. But you have your own little vomit bucket. You have an ashtray and a lighter so that you can smoke mapacho, because mapacho is there to protect you and ward off the evil spirits or the dark spirits or the dark energy or whatever, however you want to interpret that. And then you have a roll of toilet paper, and you have I say they're really nice. I mean, they're really nice for a 1-inch thick mat. They really are, but I could have done with something a little bit thicker. And then the blankets, though, they were amazing. And I was originally thinking like, what the fuck do I need a blanket for? Well, I'm glad I had it eventually, because it became a really safe space for me to be. And I'm not one to cover myself up in a ball under a blanket, but several times I found myself in that position. And yeah, that's the basic setup. The maestro and maestro come in, and they sit in the center on their mats, and they're actually facing opposite directions from one another. And I think there's some significance to that, but I am personally not sure what that is. And I look forward to understanding that someday. They light it's like a blunt of mapacho, and they rip this thing down. It's incredible. And what they're doing,
just for those that don't know, like mapacho is tobacco rustica, which is jungle tobacco that's typically smoked. So meaning smoked over a fire before it's smoked. So it's dried over a fire typically, and it's a bit more powerful, well, quite a bit more powerful than regular tobacco, just for those that don't know.
For sure. Sorry about that, man.
No worries.
And so they really are there. I mean, the thing's like this big around, and they are ripping this thing down. And I quit smoking a long time ago. I still vape. It's completely different. I don't give a shit what you say about it, but I was not prepared. Like you said, it's much stronger. And to me, it's awful tasting, but I think that's mainly because I got away from smoking cigarettes and couldn't believe, like, in that process, like how bad cigarettes actually tasted. So maybe that's why I didn't like it. But yeah, they ripped down their mapacho, and then Maestro, he gets out the medicine, and I'll never forget every time he gets the medicine out, all 3 ceremonies, he basically blesses it. Is that what I'm to understand? Or it's like a prayer that he says over it, and it's incredible, man. And then he like actually blows in it, and it makes a sound as the air moves over the bottle. And it was really cool to hear how that sound changed every night, because there's less and less medicine in it. And it was amazing. And wouldn't you know it, I was the first one to have to take the medicine that night, the first night. And I want to preface this by saying, in my cohort, I am the only one who had 0 experience with any drugs other than your standard alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, sugar, right? Cannabis is the only one throughout my entire life, to the point of my ayahuasca journey, that I had ever tried. And, you know, it was, I kept hearing the whispers from people, you know, like, ooh, you're about to get it. I think my saving grace was the facilitators, Jonathan in particular. He came to me and he said, dude, this is the way you want to do it. Like, I'm almost jealous because you are basically pure, is what he was trying to tell me. And, you know, I appreciate that a whole lot now, because I understand what he meant. And so, yeah, man, I go up there and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do. So I sit there cross-legged. I have no idea what to expect from the medicine. And I kind of go up there, and in front of me is my shot glass, and you pick it up and you hold it out, and Maestra, so the female, will fill your cup. And then in front of you is a selection of different size mapacho sticks or rolls or cigarettes or whatever you want to call them. And you're encouraged to take as many as you want. So I think I took like 1 or 2 because I knew I wasn't probably going to smoke a whole lot. And then I go back to my mat, you know, drink it, put my shot glass back down, and go back to my mat, and it's time to wait. And yeah, man, things get a little fuzzy after that. So I'll leave it up to you to kind of guide me on what you would like the audience to know from this journey, because I have no recollection of how long it took for the medicine to work on me. I do recall they made it around the room, so everybody had taken the medicine before I blasted off. I do think that there were a couple of people that took the medicine pretty close to me that blasted off before I did. I also, in hindsight, think that I was kind of maybe fighting the medicine a little bit because I didn't want to be
That
the first
happens.
one to blast off. So, I really am not sure, but I know my world got rocked that night.
Mm.
My life
Yeah, did
actually
you
changed that night.
yeah, when you said you were fighting the medicine, like how did that feel? Meaning did you have like an existing set of expectations in terms of how the experience would be?
I didn't, man. So a lot of the work we were doing before you actually take the medicine was about setting intentions versus expectations. So I told you, I genuinely went into this with an open mind, even though, I was at my wit's end and, in that dark place. I really did go in there and learn some things, and I had let go. I even journaled about it, letting go of expectations. And I think the last thing I wrote before I went into ceremony was, just let the medicine show you what it needs to show you. That's it, right? Like, so I
Mm.
had completely resigned to, not having any expectations, but I think it's kind of a detriment in that I don't know how this medicine's supposed to make me feel. I don't know if I'm supposed to feel something physically. I don't know if I'm supposed to get that head change, right? Like, and my experience is just cannabis. So, I know what happens when I smoke that, right? Like, and and eventually got to the point where I knew what different strains were going to do and what I could expect to feel, but I didn't know what to expect with the ayahuasca, from the way it tasted to, I thought it was going to have a much more horrible aftertaste. It's actually gone pretty quick. It was really amazing. So not necessarily. No, I just sat on my mat. I smoked a mapacho to help get rid of the aftertaste. And I did want to be respectful of everybody else. I didn't want to just go back to my mat and lay down. I wanted to give other people the respect for having the courage to even be here and do this journey. So I thought that was important. And of course, a big aspect of this is there's no light in this, right? So everything that we were doing was by candlelight, and then once the last person takes the medicine, the lights go out. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Amazon rainforest, but it's really dark. And
Yes.
even with a full moon shining into the Maloka, it was still one of the darkest places I've ever been in my entire life. I mean, it really is that dark. So now you're just kind of sitting there, and I'm not really feeling anything to my recollection after the lights go out. And you know how it is when you're in a group of people. There's a cough here and a bowel movement over there, and people getting up to go to the bathroom, right? And so at some point, that the sound of people walking on the wooden floor of the Maloka to the bathroom started to change. It started to drone on a little bit more, and then I was like, okay, definitely know something's going on, but I haven't felt a physical change yet. So I just scooted back on my mat because I knew that it was going to be a long time, right, before anything was going to happen. They kind of prepare you to tell you you're going to take the medicine, and then it's going to be silence for what seems like a long time, because basically what's happening is Maestro and Maestra are waiting to feel the effects of the medicine so that they can communicate with the universe. And this is my opinion of it, but communicate. They once the medicine kicks in for them, they've got that bridge to the universe, and that's when they begin the icaros to every individual. And so I remember the silence. I remember, my hearing had changed completely, and then after that, dude, it was a roller coaster. Lots of colors, lots of incredible feelings I don't even know how to describe to you. Definitely felt like I was floating, but not, I am a pilot, but not in a sense of like flying an airplane, but like floating in this space that I didn't even know ever existed. Right. And man, like, what else happened? It felt very, I don't know, like I was being taken back to the beginning. And I guess, like, the way that I would explain the beginning is I had this feeling like I was in this cave, like I was a caveman, like the beginning of humanity, like almost like being born again. And then that went away pretty immediate, and I went straight to hell. Oh boy, it kind of makes me sick at my stomach thinking about it now, because it was the darkest place I've ever been. And I mean, like pitch black, you're not seeing anything. You can't, this evil feeling. And I was so afraid. I've never been so afraid in my life. And, something took over me physically, and I don't know what that was, but this sinister laugh started coming out of me. I couldn't replicate it if I tried. And even my battle buddy next to me, Rich, he mentioned something to me about it the next morning, which we can get to, but this evil laugh, and something telling me like, I have control, basically, you don't have control. And I remember feeling very wrong about that. Like, you're not supposed to have control, and you're not supposed to be in control of me. And then I don't know, man, I spent it felt like an eternity in that kind of terrifying state. I don't really remember a lot of what happened with all of that. But the next thing that I do remember that was so profound is when they started singing. And that brought me, yeah. So to understand what I'm talking about. So I said the maestro and maestra will sing an individual Icaros to you each, everybody. So that's 24 total. But before they do that, they sing in the middle, as soon as the medicine starts kicking in. And so Maestra, the female, kicked it off, and it was like, it immediately snapped me out of that evil place I was in and brought me back to the beginning, right? That rebirth, or that cave around this fire. And that's really, it felt very prehistoric, very, very, very ancient. And to me, her voice was the most beautiful voice I had ever heard in my entire life. It was so soothing and so comfortable. And at this point, I grabbed my puke bucket, and I'm holding it kind of like this, and I'm just rocking back and forth, almost like a mother would rock a newborn, right? And she comes over, and I'm the first one. I'm the first one to get the medicine, so I'm one of the first ones to get her Icaros. And she comes from across the room to me. So there was the gap between the last person on the other side of the room for me and me, because that's how you would get to the bathroom. So the only people that are allowed to be there are the two facilitators, who have tons and tons of experience with ayahuasca. And mind you, everybody in this room is on the medicine. So nobody in this room is not existing on another plane in some way, shape, or form. And I'm amazed at how Jonathan and Vlad were able to walk around the room, have their wits about them, help people through this journey. I imagine that's something similar to what you do. And
it's easier with practice.
Yeah, for sure. But so I remember when Maestra's coming, so I wasn't the first one to get her song. I was the second one, but she's coming from the guy all the way on the other side of the room. And I'm hugging this puke bucket, rocking back and forth. And Jonathan comes over to let me know that she is coming to sing my Icaros, so that I can get to the end of my mat and receive, what I need to receive. And man, what I saw when she walked across the room was not human. It was not anything I've ever seen depicted in any kind of art anywhere in my entire life. It was the only word I guess I have to describe it is otherworldly. It was not of this earth. It was not of what we know of the universe. It was I've never seen anything like this, but it was jet black, flowy, just glowing hair, and a face that was just full of light. It was just concentrated light, and kind of a body of light too, but looked human, if you will, walking across the room to me. And as she got closer, my head kept going down. I didn't have control over it. It just forced my head down. And she sat down and she started singing. And What I understand about that now is basically she started the purge for me. She started bringing me back to balance because essentially she started saying to me, and the message I was getting is it's okay to let go. It's okay to let go. And I immediately start heaving into my bucket loudly. And I'm a big guy and I make big loud sounds, right? So I'm going at it for a long time. And man, as soon as she was done with her Icaros to me, I didn't touch the puke bucket again ever. I want people to understand, because you're fasted, you're not throwing up anything really. Even if you drank a little bit of water, I think at most it's like a little bit of bile. Like it would be the equivalent of like hawking a loogie, I would say. I'm sure people do throw up massive amounts, but the setting I was in and the the systems they had in place to prevent stuff like that, I think were phenomenal. And I can't say enough good things about Terapoto and Vlad and all those guys. So yeah, but I didn't touch my puke bucket again for the rest of the retreat. And I felt immediately a million pounds lighter. Like I didn't understand what was happening at the time, and I still had a lot I was going to have to go through. But I was finally able to lay down and catch my breath and just return to my breath on my mat after her Icaros to me was over. And I don't know if you use it or not, but they use at the end of the Icaros for you, they bless you with Florida water, and I call it God's aftershave. It's a smell I won't soon forget, and I have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it keeps me grounded, man. If I ever am having trouble, I can open that and give it a little smell, and it'll take care of some things for me. And it's not something I'll ever forget, and just the feeling that I got from it, and having that smell in my hair and on my skin, and it was amazing. But anyway, so she moves on. I lay down on the mat. This is kind of the stuff that I won't get into, just to kind of preserve my intimacy with my journey. But I went through quite a bit of stuff. Let's just say I met God, my version anyway, the creator, whatever you guys want to call it. I learned how to love and respect myself, and I completely changed the narrative in my head all in one night.
Yeah, it's amazing. There are different traditions based on where you go. So you're taking with the Peruvian tradition. The Colombians have a different tradition. They make a slightly different brew called yahe as opposed to ayahuasca. And I mean, although the two terms are used interchangeably. And what you're talking about with the Icaros is, in the Peruvian tradition, the Icaros are specific healing songs that the taitas use, or the maestros or maestras use. In the Colombian tradition, it's a little bit different, and every indigenous tradition does it slightly differently. So whoever's taking or has taken ayahuasca probably can either identify with this or has done a slightly different tradition, but they're extraordinarily powerful. And the taitas, maestros, and maestras train for many, many, many years to allow themselves to work with the medicine to work with you to extract a lot of those things and when you're talking about purging, we believe from a spiritual sense that it's not just bile, it's the medicine is actually going in and extracting things that you need to release out. So in the indigenous traditions, they believe that Westerners are sick because they never purge, right? So
I
a lot
believe
of the
that.
indigenous traditions, they're doing a lot of purging. They're getting a lot of stuff out pretty much constantly.
Yeah, I can expound on that a little further. So by the third ceremony, we'll just kind of keep all of them. We'll just talk about it like one big ceremony, I guess, and just my experience with ayahuasca. But throughout the ceremonies, like after the first night, you meet with maestro and maestra, and you tell them why you're there, and you tell them what you think you need to work on right now. And I think they really love me because Jorge was our maestro, and he had the biggest grin on his face when he came into that room and I was sitting there, because he wanted to see how I was going to answer the questions he had for me, because he already knew, I think. And I don't speak Spanish, and I definitely don't speak Shipibo, and the people who speak Spanish at the retreat barely speak Shipibo, and the Shipibo people barely speak Spanish. But basically what I got from him was that I'm 1,000% there for the right reasons, and I 1,000% learned the lessons the first night that would carry me on to the next 3 nights. And he had the grin on his face because he was just overjoyed that I received everything I was supposed to receive, and that he could tell I was here to do the work and willing to receive the work and the lessons that the medicine was going to teach me. And I think he was genuinely just happy that I think he knew what the future held for me. We'll just leave it at that.
I love that, man. And so it was a good ceremony for you. How did you feel afterwards?
So particularly after the first night, I learned about balance, and I believe everything in life is a balance between the light and the dark. And if you don't believe me, you can see it everywhere you look, from the color of the cabinets behind you to the color of the wall to the color of your skin and the color of your shirt to the, everywhere. It's everywhere you look, balance. So I was consumed with darkness, and basically my interpretation of my first ceremony was I was reborn back into the light with proper balance. And I honestly believe that because I look at pictures from that trip and I don't recognize that person. There's a side-by-side, a before and after. I actually should give it to you so you can throw it in here for people to see, of me before the medicine and me after the medicine, and everything is different. No more bags under my eyes, no more gray hair in my beard. My hair looks thicker, fuller, not greasy and oily, but like healthy. The smile, my teeth are whiter, the whites of my eyes are whiter. Just all kinds of stuff that I've noticed in the photo of myself. I'm not that person anymore. That person does not exist as far as I know. In the past is the only place. And so coming down from the Maloka, I told you we had the full moon, and by the Chiloka at the fire pit is this opening in the jungle. And all I could do was stare at the moon, man. I just wanted to consume as much light as I possibly could. And I cried a whole lot. I didn't even know why I was crying. And, then the next night I learned that everything vibrates and is connected at different frequencies, and they make sounds and they have associated colors. For me, the mountains were like vibrating at this really, really high frequency, which surprised me. I figured they'd be a lower frequency, and it was red, and the trees were a yellow, and it was a kind of a medium frequency. And the floor that I was laying on was like a low resonant frequency, and it was blue. And seeing the wavelengths and just understanding, like just having my mind blown by how interconnected literally everything in our lives are. And then the third night is where I got to experience, so not everybody purges at the same time in ceremony. There were people the first night while I was going through all of the shit that were in total bliss the entire 9-10 hours, right? And they're coming to me like, dude, I feel so bad for you. And I was like, oh, don't worry, you're going to get your turn, right? And so the third night, a lot of people purged. And I think that was a really cool experience for me because, like what you were saying, with the medicine going inside of you and forcing things, I look at it like forcing things out of your soul. I would see people purge, and I told you it's pitch black. You can't see anything in here, but across the room, I would hear someone purging, and I would see the dark energy leave their bodies. I would see it float around the Maloka and then leave through the top of the Maloka. And I could see that for everybody, and it was mind-blowing to me. And it was, I don't know, it all had then made sense why I felt this strange energy when we first got to the retreat. And I don't know, man, I took a lot away from that. I really did. And I'm still learning every single day what I've taken away from that. And I don't even know where to begin. I've lost 92 pounds since July 7th of 2023. It's May 20th of 2024. So 10 months, that's 9.2 pounds a month. I left corporate America behind with no hesitation, structured my life so that I can do nothing but help veterans. I'm taking the Being True to You course, which is a 4-month, 400 level, I think, college course, essentially to get a certification in psychedelic integration and addiction recovery coaching, because I want to give back to veterans, and particularly veterans, but anybody who needs help. I want to help them go on their healing journeys, whether that be via plant medicine or the tools that I'm learning and have learned from my plant medicine journey. I care about people. I look at the world through everybody's eyes instead of just my own narrow lens. I'm self-aware in that, for example, driving, because I don't do that much anymore. But when I have to go out, I catch myself getting road rage, and I take a step back and be like, this person's on their journey, and I don't know what in their life is affecting them today, but I cannot be like this. This is an undisciplined thought and reaction, and it doesn't serve me. And just like that, it's gone, and I'm no longer pissed off. I mean, it doesn't really make me want to drive anymore, but at least I recognize the behavior and I cut it out so that it doesn't waste precious energy on something that doesn't deserve my energy. I express gratitude for everything, man, for no other reason than I'm grateful, right? I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful that I met you, Scottie. I'm grateful that we get to have these conversations. I'm truly just grateful. I approach things with grace in that I try not to judge. And when I do catch myself judging, I don't make an excuse for it. I own it. I don't lie to myself, man, anymore. At all. For years and years and years, I was like, oh, you're not that big. You can get in shape. We'll start Monday. It's just another cookie, right? That's not a big deal. No, dude, all that shit matters. I pay attention to the things that I put in my body. Not all things, right? Like, we all have vices, and I think part of my healing journey is moderation and moderation in moderation, but also being very forgiving on myself, right? Like, I don't eat sugar anymore, like pretty much ever. My wife made me a cake for my birthday, which was the 9th. And so 11 days ago, and there's still some in the fridge. And the last time I had a piece of it, I felt like shit, right? Like, I just, so so many things, Scottie. I don't even know like how to list them all. It's incredible, man. I just genuinely feel compelled to help people. I feel like I know why I was put on this earth. I know what my purpose is, and I know also that I'm capable of achieving so much more than I ever gave myself credit for.
That's amazing, brother. It sounds like it had a tremendous impact on your life and set you on a journey of wanting to help heal others.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
100%.
else, outside of ayahuasca, did you explore any other healing modalities? I think you had mentioned meditation and a couple of other things like breath work.
Yeah, for sure. The big one for me is breath work. And I don't do anything extreme. I've explored Wim Hof. There's like a money meditation one, which is not for the wrong reasons, I promise, but it's this breath work that is supposed to be related to, business and finance and just bringing good energy your way through that. But I still just use the simple 4 count, man. Because really for me, that's all it takes. It takes a massive amount of energy, because they got a lot going on in here always, for me to just focus in on breathe in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, right? And about 4 or 5 rounds of that, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm frustrated, overwhelmed, anxious, nervous, angry, it always seems to ground me. It brings me back to zero. Physical fitness, and I don't mean like crazy fitness influencer, but I walk 4 miles minimum every single day as soon as I get out of bed. I don't make an excuse for it. I don't hem and haw about it. If it's raining, if it's cold, it doesn't matter. I'm starting my day with a 4-mile walk in nature. Here lately without headphones, because I noticed some serious benefits with doing that and really being left alone with your thoughts. But a lot of times I listen to an audiobook related to entrepreneurship or whatever I'm trying to learn for my business. I do meditate, not as often as I should, but a huge part of my practice, which I think is meditative, is yoga. Yoga is another one. And something else I'm doing, I make it a point every day to go spend 15 minutes in my backyard with my bare feet touching the grass. Something about that has vastly improved everything in my life. I fast. I intermittently fast. I just changed back to 18 hours because I think I've hit this point where we need to not be so aggressive, and I might be starving my muscles a little bit. But from, I don't know, I could look at it, but I think for the last 10 months, it's been 20 hours a day. And I will throw a 72-hour in there pretty frequently. I believe in the power of that, and challenging my mind to do something that's uncomfortable and hard because it makes me better. And it I don't know, it just there's so many benefits to all of it, man.
I love that, man. That's wonderful. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing to help veterans now and the project that you have going.
Yeah, man. So I started the Strategic Veteran. It's a podcast, really. Right now, that's what it is. I started it because I was, talking to some mentors, and they suggested that I am not the type of person that's going to convey his message across a keyboard. I need to actually say it. And I'm good at conversation, and I like talking to people. So I originally started the podcast as really a marketing tool to get people back to my coaching business, which is what it will be. But honestly, it's really just, I believe the path back to purpose for veterans in particular is through entrepreneurship. I believe that for a ton of reasons, but I really believe that mostly because it's a never-ending mission that you have control over. And so basically the whole show is I bring on veteran entrepreneurs. I was grateful enough I was blessed enough to get you as a guest, and we start a little bit about your early life, what inspired you to join the Army, the highlight reel of your career, not Army, but military. And then, the transition, because I'm finding in talking to veterans and whatnot that A, they didn't know entrepreneurship was an option for them when they got out, and B, they don't know where to start. And the transition is really what hangs them up. They get bottlenecked in the transition into thinking that the only way for them to live a life that is happy or whatever is to use their GI Bill, get a degree, find a corporate job, work the 9 to 5, retire, enjoy maybe a decade of your life, and then die. And I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that at all. I believe that we as veterans spend our entire careers developing high leverage skills that transition well into the business world, and all they need is a little bit of help to understand how that works. And I'm proving that every day. I've not had a paying client in the coaching business. I've spent probably about 6 hours coaching various different people, and they are running with it. I'm unlocking something for them. I'm presenting information to them in a way that, they can go apply it. One of them made his first $800 and he hasn't even named his business. And another one, she didn't have any idea where she wanted to start, and now she is all over the internet. And I'm so proud of them for just an hour-long conversation with me. They figured out what's possible. And eventually I will be adding the psychedelic integration and addiction recovery to part of my portfolio. So yeah, man, it's really just all about helping the community, finding a way to give them their purpose back, whether that's through entrepreneurship or the psychedelic integration coaching, or just helping them not be addicted anymore, because that's a huge problem, and we've all been there.
Dude, that's so amazing, man. I'm happy to see the work that you're doing. Very proud to be a part of it, and I'm really looking forward to maybe doing some courses with you in the future in terms of Waking Warrior and what we can do to help our veterans, especially when it concerns the addiction recovery. I love it,
Yeah,
man.
hell yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Addiction's my weak area. I really joined the course because of the psychedelic integration and all the tools I was going to get out of that, because I felt myself slipping back to that old way a little bit. but all the wonderful things that I've gotten out of it. And hey, I'm a huge advocate for plant medicine, but I'm not necessarily here to tell you that it's for everybody and that it's going to work. And I am here to tell you that the same results are possible with the tools that I've learned and am learning, and I'm more than willing to walk that journey with you if plant medicine is not for you. So for anybody who listens to this in your audience and that's interested in what I have to say, or maybe I'm a good fit for them, I will work with anyone. And I don't believe that plant medicine is the only way. In fact, I refer to it as a cheat code. I really do. It's not a cheat code in that it cures everything, but it sure shows you the top of the mountain and the work that you need to do to climb that mountain. And if you just follow the steps, it'll really get you places. So that being said, I'll coach anybody. I'm more than happy to share the tools and the information that I'm learning with anybody who's struggling. And we got to stop killing ourselves, man. Like, that's the whole reason I'm doing this. I cannot pick up my phone to 4 or 5 notifications every month of some of America's finest men and women taking their own lives for several reasons, but just because there's a better way, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Dude, that's so well said. And that's what motivates me as well. Dude, it's such a pleasure, man, to have your story and to hear that ayahuasca really helped you. It's really helped me. It's really helped a lot of veterans. Like you mentioned, it's not the only way. It's one of many ways. And one thing that I'm trying to do at Waking Warrior is showcase these stories to let people know that they can heal in any variety of different ways, and that we're here to help you. You're here to help people figure out what way resonates with them. Anything else that you want to share or add, or advice that you have?
Man, if you're out there and you're struggling, the VA is not the only way. Stop blaming the VA. Take a little bit of ownership for your own problems. And I don't mean that in a confrontational way. I just mean it in a real way. Stop lying to yourself enough to seek some information for alternative healing therapies, because they're out there, and there are plenty of people doing phenomenal work in this space to help us stop killing ourselves. I really mean that, man. That is my motivation. That is my driving force, is to just wake veterans up. That's why I'm not concerned with making money. I don't care about the coaching business. I'm focusing 100% of my time on the podcast, because I know if I would have saw a show like what I'm doing when I was at my lowest point, like I did with the Sean Ryan show, that it'll change people's lives. And so that's all I care about, man, is just getting my stuff in front of as many veterans as I can, and them reaching out to me, man. I answer all of my DMs myself. I don't pay anybody to answer anything for me. I try to get to them in a timely manner, but as I grow, that gets harder and harder to do. But I really mean it, man. Like, if you're a veteran, get out of your own way for just a minute. Stop lying to yourself and admit you need help. And I promise you, there's plenty of us out here that will help you.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for doing this, for coming on a second time. Really looking forward to continuing our friendship and our work together. And hopefully we can take some medicine very soon down here in Colombia together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how to butter up my wife to have that conversation with her.
I can't imagine, brother.
Yeah. Hey babe, I want to go down to Colombia for a week or so and do some bufo with a man I just met on LinkedIn.
It'll be perfect. Sounds like a great sell.
Yeah. No, my wife's cool. She probably won't have an issue with it, but I'm a little busy at the moment is the problem.
Yeah, dude, I feel you, man. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for this example of what it's like to face your fears and confront something and heal through that process.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the work you're doing too, man. Like, give yourself some credit too, because you're doing the thing too, man. And it's so cool to get to be a part of that, right? Like, to be one of those, right, that are doing such good work for the community. And meeting people I had no idea you existed a couple of weeks ago, and seeing all the work you're doing, it's like, okay, this is the people that I need to surround myself with, and I need to be with. And only through getting out of my own way and asking for help did any of this become possible. So
I love it, man. Well, I think we'll end it there. And thanks for being the end of number 11
Hell
on to
yeah,
number
brother. I
12.
appreciate it.
Likewise, man.